students, today we will discuss ion exchange and uptake of nutrients by plants. The main objectives of today's topic are to study ion exchange in plants, second to study ion uptake in plants, and finally we will study various factors controlling ion uptake. So let's start with the first objective, that is ion exchange. An ion is an atom or group of the atoms that carry a positive or a negative charge as a result of having lost or gained one or two electrons. There are two kinds of ions, cations and anions. Cations are positively charged ions and anions are negatively charged ions. Soils are capable of exchanging one kind of cation for another, that's cation exchange, and one kind of anion for another, that's anion exchange, at adsorption sites on soil particles like clay and humus. This process is called ion exchange. Now we will see what cation exchange is. Cation exchange is the interchange between a cation in a solution and another cation on the surface of any surface active material. Cation exchange in most soils is centered with clay and organic matter. For example, a calcium ion held on the colloidal surface is subject to exchange with two hydrogen ions in the soil solution. Now, cation selectivity. The attraction of cations for negatively charged colloid surface is qualitatively described by Coulomb's law. Ions of smaller dehydrated radius have a greater density of charge per unit volume. Hence, they attract waters of hydration more strongly. The radius of such hydrated cation is larger than that of cation of larger dehydrated or crystal size. An ion of larger hydrated radius is held less tightly by soil colloid surfaces than is an ion of smaller hydrated radius, because small hydrate ions can approach colloid surfaces more closely. The most important factor determining the relative extent of adsorption or desorption of a given ion is its valence. Divalent ions in general are retained more strongly than monovalent ions. Trivalent ions in general are retained more strongly, and quadrivalent ions such as thorium are essentially unreplaced by an equivalent amount of KCl. Within a given valence series, the degree of replaceability of an ion decreases as its dehydrated radius increases. An apparent exception is the hydrogen ion. Monovalent hydrogen in this case behaves more like a trivalent lanthanum. Relative ion replaceability or ease of the removal from specific colloids has been called the lyotropic series. Cation exchange capacity. Cation exchange capacity is the amount of exchangeable cation per unit weight of dry soil. The SI system of cation exchange capacity is expressed in the centimoles of positive charge per kilogram of soil. Thus, if a soil has a cation exchange capacity of 10 centimole per kilogram, it means that 1 kilogram of soil can adsorb 10 centimole of hydrogen ion. The cation exchange capacity of a given soil is determined by, first, relative amount of different colloids in that soil, and second, the cation exchange capacity of each of these colloids. Thus, sandy soils have lower cation exchange capacities than clay soils because sandy soils are usually lower in both clay and humus content. pH also has a marked influence on the cation exchange capacity of soils, and it has been shown to increase with increase in pH in most soils, because as pH increases, the negative charge on some 1:1 type silicate clays, allophone, humus and even iron, aluminum oxides increase, thereby increasing the cation exchange capacity. Importance of cation exchange capacity. Cation exchange is an important reaction in soil fertility, in correcting soil acidity and basicity, in changes altering soil physical properties, and as a mechanism in purifying or altering percolating waters. Cation exchange and availability of nutrients. Exchangeable cations generally are available to both higher plants and microorganisms. By cation exchange, hydrogen ions from the root hairs and microorganisms replace nutrient cations from the exchange complex. The nutrient cations are forced into the soil solution, where they can be assimilated by the adsorptive surfaces of roots and soil organisms, or they may be removed by drainage water. Several factors operate to accelerate or retard the release of nutrients to plants. First, cation saturation and nutrient availability. The proportion in any soil of the cation exchange capacity satisfied by a given cation is termed the percentage saturation for that cation. Thus, if 50% of the cation exchange capacity were satisfied by calcium ions, the exchange complex is said to have a percentage calcium saturation of 50. If the percentage saturation of the exchange complex by a given cation is high, the displacement of this cation will be comparatively easy and rapid. For example, we have two soils with calcium saturation of 75 and 203. Calcium would be readily available in the former, where the later soil produces opposite condition. B. Influence of complementary adsorbed cations. A second factor influencing the plant uptake of a given cation is the complementary ion held on the colloids. The strength of adsorption of different colloids to colloids occur in the following order. The strength of adsorption of different cations to colloids occur in the following order. Aluminium have greater strength than calcium, followed by magnesium, followed by potassium, which has equivalent strength to ammonium, followed by sodium. Consequently, a nutrient cation such as potassium is less tightly held by the colloids if the complementary ions are aluminum and hydrogen, that's acidic soils. The less tightly held potassium ions are more readily available for absorption by plants or for leaching in acid soils. There are also some nutrient antagonisms which in certain soils cause inhibition of uptake of some cations by plants. For example, potassium uptake is limited by high levels of calcium in soils. Effect of colloid type. The influence of nature of the colloid on the availability of ions to plants has been carefully considered by Mehlich and his co-workers. In general, it has been observed that calcium availability is higher in soils containing clay minerals of the 1:1 type than in the soils containing the 2:1 type because the latest structure has high charge density per unit of colloid surfaces, as a result of which hold calcium more strongly than does the 1:1 type of colloids because of their low charge density. Cation exchange and soil physical properties. A high proportion of sodium on the cation exchange sites of clays cause breakdown of aggregates, allowing the very small dispersed particles to clog pore spaces, and in extreme cases the soil becomes impermeable. The soils with more than 50% of cation exchange sites occupied by sodium are undesirable for the plant growth. Such soils are reclaimed by applying gypsum to the soil. The adsorbed sodium ions are exchanged by calcium. The calcium helps flocculate the soil and improve the structure. Cation exchange and percolating waters. Any water moving through the soil will lose many of its soluble cations to the soil colloids and pick up those cations that have been replaced from the exchange sites. Cation nutrients such as potassium, ammonium and calcium will not move far in the soil before they are adsorbed to the exchange sites. This reduces their leaching loss. Now the anion exchange. The positive charge associated with the hydrous oxides of iron and aluminum, some 1:1 type clays and amorphous materials such as allophone make possible the adsorption of anions. In turn, these anions are subject to replacement by other anions. Just as cations replace each other. The anion exchange that takes place is important as a means of providing to higher plants readily available nutrient anions. Various aspects of anion retention and exchange are: first, non-specific anion reactions. Anions are first attracted by positively charged sites on a surface, or second repelled by negative charge. Layer silicates in the soil fraction of soils are normally negatively charged, so that anions tend to be repelled from the mineral surfaces. Soils, however, contain a variety of solids, including the layer silicates that develop both negative and positive charge. An anion approaching soil solids may thus be simultaneously repelled by negatively charged surfaces and attracted to positively charged sites on clay edges, hydrous oxides and allophone. Second, anion repulsion, that's negative adsorption. If a dilute neutral solution of KCl is added to dry montmorillonite, the equilibrium chlorine concentration in the bulk solution will be greater than the chlorine concentration in the solution originally added to the clay. This phenomena is termed as negative adsorption and is a manifestation of unequal ion distribution in the diffuse double layer surrounding charged colloid surfaces. Another explanation for the increased chlorine concentration in the bulk solution is hydration of the montmorillonite with water, leaving less solvent for the salt. Factors affecting anion repulsion include: first, anion charge and concentration; second, species of exchangeable anion; third, pH; fourth, presence of other anions; and finally, nature and charge of the colloid surface. Ions commonly exhibiting net anion repulsion include chlorine, nitrate, and sulfate. Now, electrostatic attraction of anions. Anions approaching positively charged sites on layer silicate or hydrous oxide minerals are attracted electrostatically in the same manner as cations are attracted to negatively charged soil colloids. The effect of ion concentration, valence, and complementary ion on the distribution of exchangeable anions are similar to the effects described for cations. Anions whose retention in soils can be described by electrostatic considerations are said to be non-specifically adsorbed. The anions chlorine, nitrate, and sulfate are generally considered to be non-specifically adsorbed. The capacity of soils to adsorb anions increases with increasing acidity and is much greater for the kelonetic soil, which has significant pH-dependent charge. At all pH values, the divalent sulfate ion is adsorbed to a greater extent than a monovalent chlorine ion, as would be expected on the basis of electrostatic attraction forces alone. Specific anion reactions. All solids and most clay minerals, particularly hydrous oxide of aluminum and iron, have amphoteric properties manifested both by the capacity of adsorbing cations and anions in the exchangeable form and by the corresponding negative and positive electric charge, depending on the pH. A simple electrostatic approach explains the exchange properties of hydrous oxides, but they can also specifically interact with the various anions. In fact, iron oxides and other oxides can scavenge arsenate, phosphate, molybdate, and similar anions from solution with high efficiency. One theory advanced to explain this strong adsorption is ligand exchange or anion penetration. The oxygen ions on a hydrous oxide surface can be replaced by anions that can enter into the six-fold coordination with aluminum or iron ions. This is known as ligand exchange or anion penetration. Phosphate is probably the most important example of specifically adsorbed anions. Many soils fix large quantities of phosphorus by converting readily soluble phosphorus to forms less available to plants. Phosphate adsorption on oxide surfaces can be explained in terms of ligand exchange or anion penetration theory. Indeed, phosphorus retention is often closely related to the contents of acid extractable iron and aluminum in the soils. The phosphate ion may react with the protonated hydroxyl groups rather than remain as an easily exchanged anion. Despite these complexities, anion exchange is an important mechanism for interactions in the soil and between the soil and plant. Together with cation exchange, it largely determines the ability of soils to provide nutrients to plants for uptake. Now coming to the second objective, that's ion uptake. Uptake of ions by the plants takes place by various methods. First, passive mineral uptake. Passive absorption of minerals is a physical process which do not involve any direct expenditure of metabolic energy. It takes place by, first, diffusion. It's a passive movement of minerals and other substances along the gradient of their chemical and electrochemical potentials across the cell membrane. Diffusion is of two types. First, simple diffusion. Membranes have either small pores or its matrix is soluble to diffusing particles. No energy is required for keeping the pores open or maintaining solubility of matrix. Passive diffusion operates through physical forces like chemical potential, electrochemical potential, hydrostatic pressure, diffusion pressure gradient. Water, oxygen, carbon dioxide are known to follow simple diffusion. Second is facilitated diffusion. Cell membranes possess permeases or special protein particles that facilitate the passage of specific substances over them. No energy is involved. Diffusion does not occur against chemical potential or electrochemical potential gradient. If accumulation of minerals is to occur, the inwardly diffusing materials must be immobilized so that it stops exerting chemical or electrochemical potential. Several other forms of passive absorption are termed as ion exchange, as we have discussed above, Donal equilibrium, mass flow of ions. First, Donal equilibrium. The Donal equilibrium theory takes into account the situation in which there are present on one side of the membrane certain non-diffusible ions. Now, if the membrane is freely permeable to the cations and anions in the external solution, equal number of the cations and anions from the external solution will diffuse across the membrane until an equilibrium is established. Normally, this equilibrium would also be electrically balanced. However, additional cations are needed to balance the negative charge of the fixed anions on the inner side of the membrane. Therefore, the cation concentration would become greater in the internal solution than it's in the external solution. When the product of the anions and cations in the internal solution is equal to that of the anions and cations in the external solution, Donal equilibrium is attained according to the following equation. Ci positive into Ai negative is equal to Co positive into Ao positive, where Ci positive is equal to cation and inside, Ai negative is equal to anion inside, Co positive is equal to cation outside, Ao positive is equal to anions outside. Mass flow of ions. According to the Munch 1927, loss of water by leaves and the relatively high osmotic pressure of leaf cells may be compensated by adsorption of water by roots, the cells of which have relatively lower osmotic pressure values than those of leaves. Water and materials in solution may therefore move in mass flow from the roots to the tops. In this uptake and movement, salts may be absorbed and move up to the plants. Now, active ion transport. It has often been observed that the cell sap in plants accumulates large quantities of mineral salt ions against the concentration gradient. For example, in Alga nitida, the cell sap accumulated potassium and phosphate ions to such an extent that their concentrations were thousands and hundreds times greater than in the pond water in which the plant was growing. This cannot be explained by simple diffusion or Donal's equilibrium and has led people to believe that absorption and accumulation of mineral salts against the concentration gradient is an active process which involves the expenditure of metabolic energy through respiration. It has now been accepted that active absorption of mineral salts involves the operation of proteins present in the plasma membrane of the cells. The proteins present in the membranes are of three known types. First, catalytic proteins, second, proteins that make up solute channels, and the proteinaceous carriers. Catalytic proteins, that are the enzymes, use energy to pump protons across membranes. The most abundant of these proteins are enzymes that catalyze hydrolysis of energy-rich ATP and H2PO4 negative. These ATP hydrolyzing enzymes are called ATPases. Every membrane in every organism apparently has at least one kind of ATPase, whose major function in membranes is to release energy in ATP to transport ions and other solutes across the membrane against a free energy gradient. Proteins in membranes that pump ions against such a gradient are called ion pumps. Several kinds of proteins make up solute channels. Each channel has a hole between the protein molecules by which solute diffuse across the membrane. Some channels allow only one ion, say potassium, to diffuse across, whereas others are less specific and allow both potassium and malate to move across simultaneously. Still, others are permeable to several solutes. An important property of solute channel is that they are gated. Depending upon the cellular conditions, holes can be open, closed, or partly open. There is much indirect evidence for proteinaceous carriers in plant membranes. These probably function first by combining with a specific solute on one side of the membrane and then by rotating and releasing the solute on the other side. Because plants usually absorb solutes quite selectively and because carriers are expected to provide much more selectivity than is apparent in some of the indiscriminate channels found to date. Both carriers and channels probably exist in plant membranes. Collectively, we call pumps, channels, and carriers as transport proteins. Now coming to the final objective, that is factors that control ion absorption. First is soil aeration. As the roots contain a large number of living cells, they require considerable amount of energy for their metabolic activities and growth. So, oxygen is absolutely essential for generating energy-rich components by biological oxidation process. As mineral absorption requires energy, poor soil aeration affects the ability of roots to absorb adequate quantities of minerals. Second is temperature. The rate of physiological process is markedly influenced by the temperature. Within the range of about 10 degree to 30 degree, an increase of 10 degrees, say from 15 to 25, usually causes the rate of metabolic processes to go up by a factor of 2 or more. Purely physical processes like ion exchange on inert exchangers are much less temperature sensitive, with a temperature coefficient Q10 of about 1.1 to 1.2. The temperature coefficient for the process of ion absorption is 2 or higher, as expected for metabolically active processes, and at temperatures near freezing, absorption is severely inhibited, as according to Hoagland 1944. pH of the solution. The degree of ionization of minerals and other nutrients depends upon the hydrogen ion concentration of the soil solution. For example, most of the phosphate ions at alkaline pH exist either as bivalent phosphate ions or trivalent phosphate ions. Such ions are not favored for absorption. On the other hand, neutral pH favors the absorption of monovalent ions. So, the soil pH has a significant effect not only on the rate but also the kind of the ions uptake. Finally, ion-ion interactions. Soil solution consists of a wide variety of ions in different concentrations. While roots absorb inorganic nutrients, the ions of one kind present in the solution either facilitate or interfere with the uptake of the other kind of ions. This phenomenon is called ion antagonism. On the other hand, a particular species of the ions enhance the uptake of another kind of ions. Such a phenomenon is referred to as ion facilitated uptake. So, it was all about today's topic. Hope you have understood. Thank you.